Ambassador Jake Murphy had prepared for this moment his entire diplomatic career. First contact with an entire galactic civilization, humanity's big debut on the cosmic stage. What he hadn't prepared for was sweating through his best suit in front of 7 different alien species, who apparently had never seen a mammal perspire before. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Jake began, dabbing his forehead with what was now his 3rd handkerchief. Humanity comes before you today seeking membership in your illustrious organization. Chancellor Krex, a being that looked like someone had taught a chandelier how to be pretentious, chimed with what Jake could only assume was disgust. Is the human leaking? Oh my stars, it is leaking, gasped botanist Willow, whose flower-like head recoiled as if Jake had just announced he had the plague. From multiple locations. Hive Queen Buzz, resembling a praying mantis who'd gotten really into corporate fashion, clicked her mandibles disapprovingly. This is most unsanitary. Are all humans this drippy? Jake forced a diplomatic smile while internally cursing whoever had cranked the council chamber temperature to what felt like the surface of Mercury. Actually, perspiration is a perfectly natural human biological function that helps regulate our body temperature. Body temperature regulation? Chancellor Krex's crystalline form literally sparkled with amusement. How primitive. We Vextari maintain perfect internal climate through quantum thermal manipulation. And we Florans photosynthesize excess heat directly into pure energy, Willow added smugly, her petals practically glowing with superiority. The hive maintains optimal temperature through collective metabolic distribution, Buzz contributed, because apparently this was now a contest of who could make humans sound the most pathetic. Jake wiped his brow again, which only made things worse. Look, I understand this might seem strange to you, but humans have thrived on Earth for thousands of years with this system. Thrived? Chancellor Krex's laugh sounded like wind chimes in a tornado. Dear human, you are literally dissolving before our eyes. How can your species possibly contribute to a civilization advanced enough to traverse the stars when you cannot even maintain basic molecular cohesion in a standard climate-controlled environment? The other council members murmured agreement in their various languages, which sounded like a combination of dial-up internet noises and someone gargling marbles. Furthermore, Willow continued, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for explaining basic concepts to houseplants. How do you expect to participate in galactic affairs when your biology is so fundamentally flawed? What happens when you encounter real environmental challenges? Jake straightened his tie, which was now clinging to him like plastic wrap. With respect, counselors, humans have adapted to every environment on our planet. From Arctic tundra to tropical rainforests, from high mountain peaks to underground cave systems. Our biology isn't flawed, it's versatile. Versatile? Buzz clicked her mandibles in what Jake was learning to recognize as alien laughter. You mean inefficient? A properly evolved species would have developed beyond such crude mechanical cooling systems eons ago. Perhaps, suggested a new voice from the back of the chamber, belonging to what appeared to be a sentient cloud of gas with delusions of grandeur. We should classify humans as a pre-civilized species. Clearly, they have not yet evolved beyond their primitive biological limitations. The council chamber erupted in agreement. Jake watched as the greatest diplomatic opportunity in human history dissolved faster than his dignity in this cosmic sauna. Very well, Jake said, loosening his tie completely because at this point, why maintain pretense? If you think human biology is so inferior, perhaps you'd be interested in a small demonstration. The collective alien attention focused on Jake like a spotlight, which unfortunately made him sweat even more. Nothing quite says competent representative of your species quite like turning into a human sprinkler system during your big moment. A demonstration? Chancellor Krex's voice carried the kind of amusement typically reserved for watching small children attempt complex mathematics. What could humans possibly demonstrate that would impress a council of advanced galactic civilizations? Jake wiped his hands on his pants, leaving visible palm prints on the fabric. I propose that humanity undertake the Galactic Endurance Trial. The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient humming of various alien life support systems seemed to pause in shock. The Galactic Endurance Trial? Botanist Willow's petals actually wilted. Human, do you understand what you're suggesting? I've done my homework, Jake replied, though he was beginning to wonder if sweating had somehow affected his brain function. The trial hasn't been attempted in over 300 years because no species has been capable of completing it. Hive Queen Buzz leaned forward, her compound eyes reflecting what Jake hoped was interest rather than anticipation of carnage. The trial takes place on Infernus Prime. Surface temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity levels of 90%. Atmospheric pressure twice that of standard galactic norm. The last species to attempt it, added the gaseous entity from the back, were the Thermac Collective. They lasted approximately 4 minutes before their cellular structure began catastrophic breakdown. And they were specifically adapted for high-temperature environments, Chancellor Krex chimed in helpfully. They literally evolved in volcanic systems. Jake nodded, trying to project confidence while his shirt slowly transformed into a soggy dish rag. I understand the risks. Risks? Willow's laugh sounded like wind through a greenhouse. Human, this isn't a risk. This is elaborate suicide. You're essentially asking permission to cook your entire species' diplomatic corps. Not just the diplomatic corps, Jake corrected. I'll be taking a team of ordinary humans, citizens, people who've never been off-planet before. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat, which was definitely beating faster than strictly necessary for optimal diplomatic performance. This is fascinating, Buzz clicked excitedly. I haven't witnessed a species-wide death wish since the Lemming Confederation of Sector 7. Should we prepare funeral arrangements? Asked another council member, this one resembling a walking geometric theorem. It seems only polite. Chancellor Krex's crystalline form sparkled with what Jake was learning to recognize as barely contained glee. Human Ambassador Murphy, while we admire your enthusiasm, surely you realize that agreeing to this trial is tantamount to admitting your species' biological inferiority when you inevitably fail within the first hour. And when we succeed? Jake asked. The laughter that erupted from the council chamber sounded like a zoo having a nervous breakdown. Various alien species made sounds ranging from whistling tea kettles to dial-up modems experiencing existential crises. When you succeed, Willow managed between her flower-based chuckling, humanity will be granted immediate membership in the Galactic Council, with full voting privileges and access to our advanced technologies. Furthermore, added Buzz, clearly enjoying herself, your species will be recognized as having the most advanced biological adaptation systems in known galactic space. Chancellor Krex sparkled even brighter. However, when you fail, as biological inevitability demands, humanity will accept classification as a pre-civilized species and withdraw all applications for galactic membership for a minimum of 1,000 Earth years. Jake extended his sweaty hand toward the Chancellor. Deal. The crystalline being recoiled slightly. Do we have to touch the leaky appendage? It's called a handshake. It's how humans seal agreements. How unsanitary, Krex muttered, but extended what passed for a hand among his species. As Jake walked out of the council chamber, leaving actual wet footprints on the floor, he could hear the excited chatter behind him. Apparently, betting pools were already opening across the galaxy, with odds heavily favoring spectacular human failure within 30 minutes. Jake smiled. If they only knew what they were about to witness. 3 weeks later, Jake stood in a nondescript conference room in Houston, Texas, addressing what had to be the most unusual team ever assembled for a diplomatic mission. So let me get this straight, said Maria Santos, barely looking up from her training log. You want me to go to an alien planet where it's 140 degrees and prove that humans are tough? That's essentially correct, Jake replied, still amazed that he'd managed to find her. Maria was a marathon runner from Phoenix who held the unofficial record for most races completed in temperatures that would kill normal people. Her idea of a rest day was a casual 10-mile jog through the Sonoran Desert at noon. And this is supposed to be difficult, why? Maria asked, genuinely confused. I ran the Badwater ultramarathon last year. That's 135 miles through Death Valley and temperatures up to 130 degrees. Your alien planet sounds like a light warm-up. Tommy O'Brien, sitting across the table, chuckled while casually eating what appeared to be the world's spiciest gumbo. Shoot, Maria. That sounds downright pleasant. I spent last summer laying pipeline in the Louisiana bayou. 110 degrees, humidity you could swim through, wearing full protective gear. We called that Tuesday. Tommy was a construction worker who'd somehow developed a reputation for being the guy you called when the job was too hot, too humid, or too generally miserable for normal human beings. His coworkers joked that he was solar-powered, because he seemed to get stronger as temperatures rose. Fascinating, murmured Professor Ellen Wright, looking up from a stack of geological surveys. The atmospheric conditions you're describing sound similar to some of the dig sites I've worked. The thermal dynamics alone would make for an interesting study. Ellen was an archaeologist who specialized in desert excavations. She'd spent years working in places like the Sahara, the Gobi, and the Australian outback. Her graduate students used to joke that she got cranky when the temperature dropped below 85 degrees, because it meant she had to wear a jacket. "I'm sorry," Jake said, still processing their casual reactions. "You all understand that this is supposed to be impossible, right? Multiple alien species have attempted this trial and failed catastrophically." "What exactly did they fail at?" Ellen asked, adjusting her glasses. "Because if it's basic thermal regulation, then they probably just haven't evolved proper cooling mechanisms." "Cooling mechanisms?" Jake repeated. Sweating, Maria explained matter-of-factly. "It's like having built-in air conditioning. Your body produces moisture. It evaporates, takes heat energy with it, keeps your core temperature stable. Basic biology." Tommy nodded enthusiastically. "Shoot, I sweat through 3 shirts on a normal workday. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Means I can keep working when other folks gotta head for the shade." "Most mammals can't do it efficiently," Ellen continued, warming to the subject. "Humans are actually unusual in how effectively we can cool ourselves through perspiration. It's one of the reasons we became such successful persistence hunters. We could literally run prey animals to death because we could maintain stable body temperature while they overheated." Jake stared at his team. "You're telling me that what the aliens see as a biological flaw is actually an advantage?" "Major advantage," Maria confirmed. "I mean, what are these aliens' cooling systems like?" "Well, the crystalline ones use quantum thermal manipulation. The plant ones convert heat to energy through photosynthesis. And the insect ones use collective metabolic distribution." The 3 humans exchanged glances. "So they need technology, perfect environmental conditions, or group coordination," Ellen summarized. "What happens when their systems fail?" "I actually don't know." Tommy grinned. "Well, when our system fails, we just sweat harder. Pretty hard to break a system that's designed to work when everything else is going wrong." "When do we leave?" Maria asked. "Because honestly, this sounds like the most fun I've had since I decided to run a marathon in the Atacama Desert." Jake looked at his team, then at the pile of diplomatic cables on his desk warning him about the impossible nature of his mission. He smiled. "Pack light, and maybe bring extra deodorant." Infernus Prime looked exactly like what would happen if someone asked a committee of demons to design the least hospitable planet possible. The shuttle's external temperature gauge read 142 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity sensors had given up and just displayed yes. And the atmospheric pressure readings suggested they were about to land inside a cosmic pressure cooker. "Oh, this is delightful," Jake muttered, watching through the viewport as alien observation platforms dotted the landscape like luxury skyboxes at the galaxy's most sadistic sporting event. The platforms themselves were marvels of alien engineering, featuring multiple layers of climate control, atmospheric filtration, and what appeared to be emergency medical facilities. Clearly, the galactic community was taking no chances with their comfort while watching humans die horribly. "Ladies and gentlemen," came the shuttle pilot's voice over the intercom, "welcome to hell. Please ensure all last wills and testaments are updated before disembarking." Maria peered out the window at the barren, steaming landscape. Huh. It's like Tucson, but with more sulfur. And less charm, Tommy added, unbuttoning his shirt collar. Though I gotta say, it's nice to finally be somewhere that matches my internal temperature. Professor Ellen was already taking notes. Fascinating mineral compositions. The thermal distribution pattern suggests significant geothermal activity. This is going to be excellent for core samples. The shuttle's ramp lowered with a hiss that sounded suspiciously like the planet sighing in resignation. The heat hit them like walking into a pizza oven filled with wet towels. Sweet, merciful air conditioning, Jake gasped, immediately feeling his diplomatic composure begin its transformation into liquid form. Oh, come on, Maria said, stepping onto the surface like she was entering a pleasant sauna. This is perfect running weather. I might actually get a decent sweat going for once. From the nearest observation platform, Jake could hear the excited chatter of alien voices discussing what they'd apparently dubbed the Great Human Meltdown. Several species were already taking bets on how long it would take for the humans to collapse, with the most optimistic odds being 17 minutes. Attention, carbon-based catastrophe. Chancellor Krex's voice boomed from a massive speaker system. The Galactic Council wishes to document your inevitable failure for scientific purposes. Please try to collapse in an orderly fashion. Gee, thanks for the encouragement, Tommy called back, casually removing his work shirt and tying it around his waist. Why, all got any cold beer up there? The alien chatter intensified. Apparently asking for cold beverages in a hellscape was not standard dying behavior. Is the human mocking us? Botanist Willow's voice carried a note of confusion. Should they not be experiencing cellular breakdown by now? Hive Queen Buzz's mandibles clicked rapidly. According to our projections, their crude cooling systems should have been overwhelmed within the first 3 minutes of exposure. Jake wiped his forehead and looked up at the platforms. Having a nice view of the show? Actually, Ellen called out, consulting a handheld thermometer. The surface temperature is only 138 degrees. The humidity is sitting at about 87%. Not bad for a desert planet. Not bad? The voice from the observation platform sounded like someone had just announced that water was actually dry. The last species to attempt this trial lasted 4 minutes before requiring emergency medical intervention. Maria had started doing stretching exercises. What species was that? The Thermac Collective. They were specifically evolved for high-temperature environments. Well, there's your problem, Tommy said, pulling tools out of his pack like he was about to start a construction project. They probably didn't know how to sweat properly. The silence from the observation platforms was so complete that Jake could hear alien life support systems recalibrating in confusion. Excuse me, came Chancellor Krex's voice, now carrying a note of genuine bewilderment. Did you just suggest that perspiration is superior to quantum thermal manipulation? I'm suggesting, Maria replied, now doing jumping jacks in 140-degree heat, like it was a mild spring day, that maybe evolution knew what it was doing when it gave humans the galaxy's most efficient cooling system. Most efficient. Willow's voice cracked like a branch in high wind. You're literally dissolving. No, Professor Ellen corrected. We're regulating. Watch and learn. 2 hours into the trial, something unprecedented was happening on Infernus Prime. Not only were the humans not dead, they were thriving. Maria had completed a 5-mile run around the designated trial area. Tommy had constructed a makeshift shelter using local materials, and Professor Ellen had collected enough geological samples to write 3 research papers. Meanwhile, on the observation platforms, several alien species had retreated to emergency cooling systems. 2 had required medical attention for heat-related stress from simply being near the planet. And Chancellor Krex's crystalline form had started making concerning crackling sounds. This is impossible, Buzz clicked weakly, her mandibles moving with obvious effort. How are they functioning normally in conditions that should have killed them hours ago? Jake, who had finally stopped fighting his biology and embraced the sweat, looked up at the platforms with a grin. Want us to explain it to you? Explain what? Willow's voice had taken on the tone of someone whose entire worldview was crumbling in real time. Professor Ellen stepped forward, somehow managing to look professorial while dripping with perspiration. Gentlemen, ladies, and assorted sentient beings, you're witnessing 2 million years of human evolution in action. When our ancestors left the forests for the African savanna, they developed the most sophisticated cooling system in biological history. She gestured to her sweating teammates. Every drop of moisture you see is our body's automatic response to heat stress. As it evaporates, it removes excess thermal energy, maintaining our core temperature within optimal ranges. We don't need technology, we don't need perfect conditions. And we don't need group coordination. We just need to let our bodies do what they were designed to do. But the energy expenditure, protested the gaseous entity, its voice wavering like heat shimmer, and the metabolic cost. Tommy laughed, casually lifting a boulder that would have required alien construction equipment. What cost? I feel great. This is the first time in months I haven't had to worry about overheating on the job. Furthermore, Ellen continued, really getting into her lecture mode, human perspiration isn't just cooling. It's adaptive cooling. The more heat stress we experience, the more efficiently our system responds. We're literally getting better at this as we go. Maria jogged back to the group, not even breathing hard. Plus, we can maintain this indefinitely. As long as we stay hydrated, our cooling system never stops working. No mechanical failures, no power requirements, no group coordination needed. This is how humans became persistence hunters, Ellen explained to the stunned alien audience. We would literally chase prey animals until they collapsed from heat exhaustion, while we just kept running. Our cooling system gave us the ability to outlast animals that were faster, stronger, and better adapted to their specific environments. Chancellor Krex's voice came out as barely a whisper. You're saying that what we interpreted as biological failure is actually biological superiority? I'm saying, Jake called up to the platforms, that maybe you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, or a species by its sweat. The trial officially required 24 hours of survival on Infernus Prime. By hour 12, the humans had not only survived but had established a comfortable camp, completed detailed surveys of the local geology, and Maria had somehow managed to organize an impromptu fitness class using planetary features as exercise equipment. By hour 18, alien scientists were frantically taking notes on human physiology, trying to understand how a species could function so efficiently in conditions that challenged their most advanced environmental control systems. By hour 24, the humans had not only completed the trial but had set a new galactic record for environmental adaptation, resource utilization, and general failure to die when expected. Jake called out, raising his arms in victory while still dripping with what the aliens now realized wasn't weakness, but the visible proof of the most advanced biological cooling system in known space. The cheering from the observation platforms was, well, there wasn't any cheering. There was mostly the sound of alien civilizations reconsidering everything they thought they knew about evolutionary biology. 6 months later, Jake sat in the same Galactic Council chamber where this whole adventure had started, but the atmosphere had changed considerably. Where once there had been barely concealed mockery, there was now something approaching reverence. And where Jake had once been dripping with nervous sweat, he was now perfectly comfortable in his custom-tailored suit, designed with advanced moisture-wicking fabric that several alien civilizations had specifically requested to study. The motion to grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council passes unanimously, Chancellor Krex announced, that his crystalline form now fitted with what appeared to be a primitive artificial perspiration system. Furthermore, we formally request that Earth consider sharing its advanced thermoregulation technology with member species. Jake dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief, more out of habit than necessity. We'd be happy to discuss technology transfer agreements, though I should mention that our advanced thermoregulation technology is essentially just accepting that sweating is normal and staying hydrated. Revolutionary, whispered botanist Willow, whose flower head now sported tiny droplets of what her species had developed as artificial perspiration. We've spent eons trying to perfect energy conversion, when the solution was simply allowing controlled moisture loss. Hive Queen Buzz clicked her mandibles approvingly. The Hive Collective has already begun preliminary trials of individual thermal regulation. Early results suggest a 700% increase in operational efficiency in high-temperature environments. "That's great," Jake replied, trying not to smile too broadly. "And how are the others doing?" Maria Santos has been appointed as the Galactic Council's first Director of Extreme Environment Operations, Krex reported. She's currently training the Andromedans in basic persistence techniques. Apparently, she got them to run a marathon on their desert moon by telling them it was a light warm-up jog. Tommy O'Brien has established the first intergalactic construction cooperative, Willow added. His ability to work in any environment has made him the most requested contractor in 17 solar systems. The Thermac Collective specifically hired him to rebuild their cities because he's the only being who can work comfortably in their volcanic environment. "And Professor Ellen Wright?" Jake asked. "She's become the galaxy's leading expert on adaptive biology," Buzz replied. "Her research on human evolutionary advantages has revolutionized our understanding of environmental adaptation. She's currently on a lecture tour of the Outer Rim, teaching advanced survival techniques to species who previously thought climate control was the pinnacle of civilization." Jake looked around the chamber, noting the various alien species now sporting their own versions of artificial sweat systems, moisture management clothing, and what appeared to be bottles of something labeled electrolyte replacement formula. "If I may ask," Jake said carefully, "what happened to the betting pools?" The chamber fell silent for a moment. "The bookmakers of 17 different civilizations declared bankruptcy," Krex admitted quietly. "No one had bet on humans exceed all expectations and revolutionize galactic biology. The odds were considered mathematically impossible." Also, Willow added even more quietly, "Several species have formally apologized for referring to humans as leaky mammals. We now recognize that you are, in fact, efficiently moisture-regulated biological perfection." Jake stood up, straightening his tie with practiced ease. "Well, on behalf of humanity, we accept your apologies. We also look forward to working with all of you as equal members of this council." He paused, then grinned. "And if anyone wants to grab a cold beer after this meeting, I know a great place that just opened up on Infernus Prime. They've got excellent climate control." The laughter that filled the chamber was warm, appreciative, and completely free of mockery. As Jake walked out of the council chambers, leaving behind his characteristic slightly damp footprints, he could hear the excited chatter of alien civilizations discussing humanity's next contributions to galactic society. Behind him, Chancellor Krex was already drafting a formal request for human assistance with a minor colony operation on a planet with surface temperatures approaching 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Jake smiled and wiped his forehead with his handkerchief. Just another day at the office for a species that had turned biological flaws into galactic superpowers. After all, in a universe full of advanced civilizations with perfect climate control, sometimes what you really need is someone who can sweat properly and isn't afraid to get their hands dirty, even if those hands happen to be a little damp.